Hello, everyone, and welcome to this really interesting conversation we're going to have tonight called Engaged, the good news and the bad news. And first, let me tell you how this is going to go, and then I'm going to tell you why we actually are having this at this particular time, and dive right in. So for the first 45 minutes, I'm basically just going to be keeping my promises. So what I said that I would help you understand, I'm going to be hitting it just one after another based on studying men since 1991. And try to give you as much perspective to help you given the situation that you might find yourself in at this point. Then I'll let you know a way that you can continue your education with us very shortly, which is very exciting. You can start our curriculum right here online on the webinar. You'll actually see the mural in my studio in the background as you transform the way that you relate to men. So we'll tell you how to do that, and we'll give you a code so that you can actually get $124 off your registration with a bunch of goodies. And then the last half hour, I'm going to be responding to your questions that you can post in the chat feature on Webinar Jam. And my request to get the most out of that time is, as I'm doing the first part of the program, if you notice that you have a question, write it down. And then as the program's going on, notice if it got answered or if your question is getting refined based on the information that I'm providing. And then you really want to do what we would call, or what men would call, get to the point. So with the least amount of background, historical precedents, history, detail, all those things that we as women love to connect over, actually, can you put in one sentence what your question is, what it is you'd like more clarity about, or to understand better, or maybe it was confusing the first time, and so you have, did I get this right? You can ask those kinds of questions too. So I look forward to your questions, and if you work on refining your questions so they're closer and closer to the heart of the matter of what it is that you're wondering about or that you need, that's not only good practice for me, it's good practice for interacting with men. And that's one of the things that we're constantly teaching in our courses is how to speak to men, how to listen to men, how to interpret what men are saying, because we misinterpret what men are saying, and that causes all kinds of mischief. All right, so deep breath. So a few years ago, the editor-in-chief of one of the biggest bridal magazines in the world contacted me because she had read the Queen's Code book. It was given to her by her father, and she absolutely loved it, and asked me to do a series for the magazine, which I did. And she told me something interesting that I didn't know, and that was that 70% of women, which would then mean 70% of men in all probability, and at least if we're talking about heterosexual relationships, get engaged between Christmas Eve and Valentine's Day. Isn't that amazing? So between Christmas Eve and Valentine's Day, 70% of the engagements happen. And that's why we scheduled this at this time, because I am very much interested in alleviating suffering and preventing misunderstandings and clearing up confusion so that we have the best chance at partnership with the opposite sex that we possibly could. So that's why we scheduled this so soon after Valentine's Day, just a week, I think, if I'm counting it right. So those of you who have gotten engaged in the last 3 months, hopefully we're helping you early on in the process. And those of you who have gotten engaged before that, hopefully we'll still be able to illuminate what often happens with men and women when they're engaged so that you can use engagement more productively. Because that's one of the things that I would really love to happen in the world. You might already have noticed for many people, engagement really is a wedding planning period. And that might be all it is a wedding planning period. And I'm an advocate of partnership. And unfortunately, most marriages aren't partnerships. I wish I could say different. They're relationships, but they're not partnerships. And I'm an advocate for partnership. And being engaged is an amazing opportunity to create partnership, to formulate partnerships, even design partnerships. And I just want people to take advantage of it if they can. That would be on the high end. On the low end, that it not be disastrous because of the things that happen when people get engaged. And that's really what I'm going to focus on the most, is how to save yourself from the worst that can happen when you're engaged. And so you at least have a chance to start thinking about the best that can happen. All right, so I'm going to actually just be hitting all the things that we sent in the email that I promised you. So I have a whole agenda here that I've prepared, and I apologize. I'm going to have to look to the side to keep myself on track. I have no idea if my left or right side is my better profile. That just occurred to me. That's pretty funny. Lifetime of living in LA can do that to someone, right? Even though I don't anymore. Okay, so this is what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about what's happening to a man before and after a marriage proposal. That'll be the first thing. And we'll be talking about the source of the most predictable wedding conflicts, because engagements are often wedding planning periods, so we should go there. I'm going to be talking about how being engaged changes brides. There are very predictable ways that getting engaged can change a woman, and how she relates to herself and how she relates to her fiance. And so we want to make sure you have a heads up about that. And the rest of that sentence is, and hurts happiness. So we'll be talking about, why is it together, right? How can being engaged change a woman and literally hurt happiness? Because isn't being engaged the beginning? Isn't it supposed to be the beginning of happily ever after? Well, that's part of the problem. Then we'll look at a woman's approach to commitment and how to make it work for you. So that's where I'm going to be getting into some of the partnership practices and more of the foundation of the Queen's Code, which the Queen's Code begins with honoring yourself. Honor yourself first and then others. Because if you don't honor you, then the men in your life have no guide. They look to you for their example, what the standard is. And if you don't honor yourself and make sure you get what you need, then the cost is enormous. And one way to put it is that you can literally disappear as the person you know yourself to be and love yourself as, and that he fell in love with. That person can disappear. And we don't want that to happen. So we'll be talking about that. And the last piece is what I promised in a different part of the email, of what has men dig in their heels and what inspires them to act. And that's going to go together with what I just mentioned. Okay, so I'm going to invite you to keep taking a deep breath. I do it for myself because I'm in a rush to give you all this important information. And I invite you to do it for yourself, because taking a deep breath, consciously letting it out, is one of the ways to shift ourselves mentally and emotionally and physically and even spiritually from being caught up in human instinct, which is incredibly powerful, incredibly compelling, and be able to make conscious choices from human spirit, because that's where all the beautiful things happen. Instinct is always pulling for survival. It's never pulling for happiness. It's never pulling for being in love. It's never pulling for partnership. It's never pulling for honesty and communication and problem solving. It doesn't pull for that. It pulls for just merely surviving with the least amount of risk, and that can actually be detrimental. So in between, I'll just breathe and invite you to breathe. Just keep breathing. One of the most important things that you can do in interacting with men, in honoring yourself, and for sure in dealing with being engaged. Okay, so let's start right at the top with this whole thing of what's happening to a man before and after a marriage proposal. So I have to start with a disclaimer, and that is that I have not studied, although I know it happens, and probably more than ever. Yesterday was my 24th wedding anniversary, and my study of men was generated by whatever I was confused or frustrated or hurt or angry about. It's quite autobiographical. It wasn't until years later that I started studying things that other women begged me to please go find out about, that I never studied because it didn't exist in my marriage. So a limitation of what I have to offer you is that I can only talk about what happens to a man before and after and in a marriage proposal from the point of view of that he was the one who proposed. I haven't studied the phenomenon of what happens when a woman proposes. And it's not that I don't think that's all right to do. I think it's great to do. I just don't know how that affects the way a man relates to it. So I'm sorry that I have that limitation. And I would invite you to just, if you are in that situation, to just take what I'm saying and see what fits. And that's really true for all of you. As I'm describing some of these scenarios, you may see that you're responding more in the way that I would say that a man would respond, and that he's responding more in the way that I would say a woman would normally respond. And the funny thing is that that's getting more and more common. So throughout our curriculum, we're always going to tell you to check this with yourself, to see what fits for you. And once again, honor yourself first. Honor what's true for you first, okay? All right, so again, the assumption is that he made the proposal. And I'm going to talk about the before part and the after part. Now, so before a man proposes, there are two things that have been happening, okay? And what it's like for him to propose and what it's like for him after to propose, especially the after, depends upon the state of the before. So how he comes into the before will determine how he is in the after. And some of the things that I say may cause you concern, and I'm sorry for that, except for that it's better to have concern now and investigate it than to not have concern and not investigate it and have something come around and be super detrimental to your life. So I don't mean to cause concern like alarm. I mean to cause concern like, if these things apply to you, you want to investigate, you want to be curious, and you want to have conversation, and there may be actions for you to take. So first of all, the combination that's happening for a man before a marriage proposal is a combination of him being ready to be married. Okay, so that's, I can put quotes on that, right? Ready to be married, ready to get married, ready to be in a partnership, ready to be a husband. So there's a whole concept of readiness. And this is something that women often don't understand about men. They think that their readiness is related to us, that if they loved us more, if they cared about us more, if they were more certain that we're the one, then they would be ready to get married. And that's the first biggest mistake that women make in interacting with men and commitment. And that is that readiness has nothing to do with her. Okay, so I'll say more about it. So the first thing that's present in the before is his readiness to be married. And the other thing that's present in the before is the right person. So I have asked countless men, do you want to be married? And most of them say yes. Of all ages, they say yes. Single men will say yes. 100% of the time that they have said yes, they have followed it up with a version of to the right person. If I meet the right person, hopefully I'll meet the right person. They always put that in place. It's never been missed. It's never just been yes. It's always been if I meet the right person, to the right person, hopefully I'll meet the right person. I'm looking for the right person. So those are the two components. Being ready for marriage in itself and looking for the right person to be married to. Okay, so back to the readiness. The readiness has everything to do with his life. So it has to do with what he thinks he needs in order to be married, in order to have any business being married, in order to have what it takes to be successfully married. So there's all kinds of things that he may think about himself in terms of where he's at with his career, with his finances, with his assets, right? So there's all these things, circumstances to be in place, with his own clarity about who he is. That'll be part of it. And there's also another part of the readiness to give up what he thinks being married requires to be given up. Now, you may hear me keep saying what he thinks. So this is one of the things to be curious about and investigate. If you have a man in your life who's not ready for something, whether it's ready for marriage, right, which we're assuming they are here, or ready to buy a house, ready to have a child, ready to blank, that has to do with them and themselves and not you. Okay, so the readiness to be married is part of the equation, and then to the right person. Now, I can't do the whole to the right person in the time that we have here. We are assuming that you are engaged because for him, you are the right person. And what happens in the before being engaged is in the before, there's some combination of readiness and to the right person. Now, it happens differently depending on which shows up first. So if a man is ready to be married, then he goes hunting the right person. Hunt the wife, hunt the wife, hunt the wife. He's very focused in hunting a wife. And sometimes it can be scary for women on the other side of that first date dinner table because he is ready to get married and he's going to come on really strong. He's going to come on like a freight train because he's clear about what he wants and where he's going. And he's looking to do something that we call getting underway, which I'll come back to. It's critical in a man's life, all the points where he is getting underway. And for men who see their lives in terms of they're going to build their life with someone, or they've built their success and now the next part of their life is about sharing it with someone, they can't get underway with the next part of their life until they find the right person. Okay, so if they're ready first, then they're going to be hunting the right person. If they've met the right person, but they're not ready, then there are going to be some other kinds of predictable conflicts, right? So if they're ready first, then it can cause a lot of interesting things in dating. If they're met the right person first, then if that right person is ready to be married and needs to be married and is pulling to get married before he's ready to be married, that can be really, 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 really difficult for him. And that will affect what it's like after he's engaged. So stay tuned here. We're putting some pieces of this puzzle together and it'll all add up, okay? So just to review, if the readiness comes first, he's hunting for a wife, and he usually knows within the first 30 seconds if, I'm not kidding, 30 seconds, if this woman is a possible future wife. And then he's going to start seeing, can he fill in the puzzle pieces of, is she the right person? And we've identified over the years, there are 12 things that make a woman the right person. Now, something you should know is that he loves her may or may not be number 13. It's definitely not in the first 12. That he loves her, well, yes, that's nice, but that doesn't mean that we should be married. That doesn't mean that she's the right person. And we talk about why that's so in our Queen's Code workshop, because it's a fundamental thing to understand about men and their relationship to feelings and how they relate to acting upon their feelings. So for a man, that he loves a woman is insufficient to get married. And this can cause all kinds of problems, especially if she is the right person, but he's not ready and he loves her and she keeps pressing to get married and she's the right person and he sees that he's going to marry her, but he's not ready yet. So this might explain for some of you how long it may have taken for you to get engaged, even though you've been with someone for a really long time. Now, if he's with the right person and she's ready before him, then this will affect how he behaves after the engagement. Because sometimes what will cause a man to get engaged, and he will not be proud of this, by the way, is an ultimatum. So a man who has met the right person, or even is pretty sure she's not the right person, but he's not willing to lose her, will get engaged in the face of an ultimatum. So he will get engaged to the right person in the face of an ultimatum, and he will get engaged to the wrong person in the face of an ultimatum if he's afraid of losing that person. And this is what will cause a tremendous amount of hesitancy and lack of enthusiasm and excitement about being engaged and getting married. It will completely change the way that he relates to being engaged from what's normal for a man who gets engaged at the time of his choosing, who gets engaged when he's ready to be engaged. Okay? So take a deep breath. Maybe something to drink. Maybe your mouth is getting dry. So just stay with me on here. So, if the engagement is induced by an ultimatum and he gets engaged when he's not ready to be married, he may somehow have gotten convinced that it's okay to be engaged when you're not ready to be married because we're not going to be married for a while. Now, this makes sense for the way that women approach commitment. This does not connect with the way that men approach commitment. But again, in the face of an ultimatum, they may go with it with their fingers crossed, hoping. Okay. And if he's not ready, then he's going to delay the wedding. And he may do this in a really straightforward way, or he may do this in a more subtle way, but he will delay the wedding. He may delay talking about setting wedding dates. He may want it to be further off. He may keep proposing reasons why we shouldn't get married yet. because there are ways that he's not ready for the responsibility of being married or what he thinks the sacrifices are of being married. Now, if it's not the right person, but he ended up engaged by an ultimatum because he's afraid of losing that person, that will also cause delays in the wedding. Now, why is this so important? Because there's a huge myth in our culture that men are dragged to the altar, that women want to be married and men don't want to be married. And so for every woman that gets married, there is a man who is somehow dragged there. And it demeans and it belittles and has us misunderstand and not be appropriate to how it is for all the men who generated being engaged, for all the men who were ready and knew they had found the right person and caused themselves to be engaged to be married. And it can get misinterpreted because those men who for whom it really is, would you allow me the privilege of being your husband? Would you show me the honor of being my wife? For the men who approach being married that way, they, in most cases, also won't be organized around the wedding, but for a completely different reason. A completely different reason. And if you don't separate that, they can get confused. And one can get accused of not caring about the wedding for a reason that completely dishonors how he is about being married. So that's why I'm taking all this time, because it's appropriate to see who's in front of you. And if you have a man who's ready to be married and who has chosen you as the right person, this is what you need to know about him, okay? He may not show a whole lot of caring about the wedding because for him, it's not about the wedding. So I'm going to say something to you that may be hard to process, but it's important. And I have validated this with so many men, okay? The wedding, he may not express excitement and enthusiasm and be all organized around the wedding like the bride may be, because since he chose to be engaged, he brought himself fully to that. When she says yes, will you marry me? Yes. He is now married. Wondering if you can let that in. So he doesn't care about the wedding, if he doesn't, because he's now married. He's not planning a wedding, he's planning a life. He's getting underway. Now everything can begin. She said yes. Life begins. This whole new phase of my life, for the rest of my life, just begin. Because she said yes. And for many women, that happens on the wedding day, which is why there's so much energy. One of the reasons why there's so much energy pulling for the wedding day, because that's when she thinks it's begun. But he's already begun. Now, besides the dishonor and disrespect to men of thinking they're dragged to the altar in these conditions, it also can cause problems because in that moment when he becomes your husband, he is going to be acting husband-like according to what a husband is like in his mind. So Okay, it's going to get more complicated because when she gets engaged, she's going to have a new job description that immediately gets implemented. So the fiance job description isn't the same as the boyfriend job description. The fiance with two E's job description isn't the same as the girlfriend job description. And unfortunately, these job descriptions are assumed by women. They haven't been published and they haven't been agreed upon. And he's now a fiance, and fiancés should. And if you want to start creating partnership and you want to prevent just major misery in being engaged, I invite you to write this down to do as an exercise when we're done. And you'll get the replay of this, so you can watch this again if you want to. And what to write down is fiancé should. Now that we're engaged, he should. Now that we're engaged, I should. And you may want to do a variation on that with your name and his name. Now that we're engaged, Mike should. Now that we're engaged, Susan should, if Susan is your name. Because when you say I should versus what your name should, it's amazing what your mind churns out in all these shoulds. Now, another word for should is expectation. As soon as a man and woman get engaged, what engages is a new set of expectations. And the woman will have a new set of expectations for herself, and she'll have a new set of expectations for him. And what's most likely to happen is they won't be examined. They will just be acted upon with a whole lot of consequences. Now, this can be a disconnect because she's now engaged and he's supposed to be engaged and there's things he's supposed to do because he's engaged, but he's not engaged. He's married. He's married and he's getting underway. And one of the ways that this can show up in a couple is that for him as a man, he has the duty and he could even have the privilege. For him, it's a privilege. And this is a fascinating conversation to have with men. Men know that there are certain things that only a woman's husband gets to provide for her. And that it would be disrespectful of him to attempt to provide for another man's wife what is only his to provide. And one of the things that's his for him to provide is to protect her. And so a behavior that can often show up in men when to a woman he just got engaged, to himself he just got married, he just became a husband, is that he can appear quite controlling. That there are things that he was easygoing about before that now he has opinions about, even strenuous opinions. He may even veto. He may do something that drives him crazy, and that is veto her choices. No, we're not going to do that. No, you can't do that. So he may veto financial expenditures. He may veto activities. He may veto going places that you've always gone because to him, it's not safe, and you're his wife, and his job is to protect you, and how he protects you is keep you from going there. Keep you from going there, keep you from spending that, keeping you from engaging in something dangerous. And this can really freak us out. That's not happily ever after. He's supposed to change in different ways, not in this way. So I'm going to keep going, although I could spend a really long time just on that one point. And I just invite you to pin it. If the word controlling or more controlling or vetoing you, canceling your vote, seeming like he's in charge of everything, if that's showing up at all in your life, there's a very good chance that this is at the source of it. And it may have shown up even before you were officially engaged, because men often decide to ask a woman to marry him even months in advance, and he starts acting like a husband at that point. I personally think they're adorable. but they can also be infuriating. Okay. So one of the things to know is that for men who have walked into this completely of their own volition, the wedding is a celebration. The wedding is a party. The wedding is for friends and family. The wedding has nothing to do with being married. They're no more married after the wedding than before. Where women tend to expect that the wedding is going to be this, oh, then I do, and then I'll be married. And that actually has to do with the difference in the way that men and women approach commitment, which I'm going to go to next. Let me look at the time. Oh my gosh. Oh, I have so much more to tell you. Oh boy. Okay. I take my promises very seriously. And so I am going to keep going with this. And we have a whole workshop called the Queen's Code for Relationships, which is about marriage and partnership and commitment, with or without wedding vows. And so I'm going to control myself and not try to lead that entire course right now, and just keep my promises and then get onto your questions. So the very good news about men and engagement is that when they become engaged, they're all in. And the other very good news is that him being all in is that he has done what they call bought the package. He's bought the package, meaning he is marrying you as you are and as you are not. This is the source of the saying, when a man and woman get married, he's hoping she won't change, and she's hoping he will. He picked up the whole package. And if somebody says something about her, like, wow, she's really cranky when she's on her period, or she really gets uptight about this, or someone says something negative about her, he'll just be looking at them like, and your point is? Like, what's that got to do with anything? Yeah, so that's how she is. I can handle that. I don't have a problem with that. That's just how she is. I remember my brother saying to me, my wife wears her heart on her sleeve. I've accepted that. So it's a really cool thing. And it's a contrast because for many, many reasons, we're opposite sexes. And women tend to not commit that way. Men commit by buying the whole package. And so this is getting into the engagement part and taking advantage of an engagement period for yourself. Women predominantly commit one acceptance at a time. So they may say, yes, I'll marry you. They may even say, I do. But I know women who've been married 10, 20, 30 years. I know women who've had wedding ceremonies 3, 4, 5 times. They've never actually got married because they keep rejecting parts of their husband instead of accepting them or having them addressed, having them worked out, having them brought into partnership. So women tend to try to keep changing men and thinking if he loved me more, he would change, right? If he knew how upset I was that he's that way, he would change. We actually think that will change men. I'll tell you a secret, not so secret. We think not accepting how a man is will change him because that's what happens to a woman. We think making sure a man knows how upset we are about what he's done or doesn't do will change what he does or doesn't do. We think if he knows how upset we are, it'll change him because that's what a woman would do. And that doesn't change men's behavior. So that's the essence of this last topic about what has them dig in. Rejecting how they are actually has them dig in. We think if we don't accept it, they'll change it. No, not accepting it actually has them be less inspired to do things for you, to inconvenience themselves for you, to stretch for you, to risk for you, to take care of you. So our approach to commitment actually is detrimental to union, to a real marriage. So, okay, everybody take a deep breath. This is bad news. The good news is he's accepted you. The bad news is you will commit one acceptance at a time. What I recommend you do with the period of being engaged is, instead of having it be about planning a wedding, have it be about paying attention. Pay attention to how he is and how that resonates with you, that him being that way the rest of your life. Instead of assuming he's going to change, assuming he's going to stay the same. Does that give you a big uh-oh? Or does that give you a, yeah, good, I like him. I like how he does things. I hope he keeps doing them the same. Okay, that'll work. If you think he's going to improve now that he's engaged and he'll improve again when he's married, they don't. They don't actually improve with marriage. Sorry. Another advanced concept. They don't improve with marriage. They improve with a whole other set of things, which is what the Queen's Code Workshop is all about. They improve with respect. They improve with appreciation. They improve with clear communication. They improve with accepting who they are. They improve with you being happy, not you being upset. So men can grow tremendously and do grow tremendously in marriage, and they actually are prepared to do that. They're prepared to grow. They're not prepared to change. They think that you said yes to them because he thinks he must be the right person for you. So he thinks that you said yes because you accepted all of him, the way that he asked you because he accepted all of you. So as you roll out item after item after item that you don't accept about him, that's really painful for him. Really painful for him. Now, does that mean there's nothing you can reject? Does that mean there's nothing you can change? No. It means how you go about it is really important. The clarity that you have about it, and how you ask him for what you need, how you present it to him, and how you do something super important that we spend a lot of time on in the Queen's Code Workshop. And that is, how do you have what you're asking for survive and even thrive in what we call the worth it calculation? So to a man, something is not worth doing to keep you from being upset. Something else entirely makes it worth doing. So the way that you ask for what you need, the way that you ask for a change in behavior, the way that you ask for a man to provide more, the way that you ask for a detail to be paid attention to, all has to support the worth it calculation. So your attitude, your clarity, your words, your approach, your timing, all of it has to contribute to that. And this is what a majority of the Queen's Code Workshop is about. Because we start with honoring yourself. Honor yourself. Get what you need. But to get what you need from men, it's an art form. And it's not because they don't want to give it to us. It's because we approach it in a way that actually does the opposite of inspiring them. It causes them to dig in and resist. We create a lot of unnecessary resistance by the way that we go about getting what we need from men. The normal way. Okay, so I'm still working on keeping my promises. Let me check and see what else here is in order. Go ahead and take another deep breath. So the thing about getting underway, he's now not engaged, he's married, and he's getting underway. We talk a lot more about that in the Queen's Code Understanding Men workshop, because it has to do with the whole way that their minds work, the way that they think, the way that they process information, the way that they approach life. That this period of time called getting underway, it's something that happens over and over and over again, and it deserves its own special treatment. So we work more on that in the workshop. Okay, I also promised to talk to you about the source of the most predictable wedding conflicts. So I already talked about one source, which is that he should be more interested in it. He should be more excited about it. He should be more organized around it. And I already told you two really important reasons why I wouldn't do that. Another source of conflict can be that he's too interested. That he's too interested in the wedding. He has too much to say about the wedding. He has too many preferences. I had a wedding. I won't say I got married because I was never married to my first husband, although we had a wedding and a child together. I never accepted him. There was no union. There was none of that we're looking for. And I got so annoyed that he had opinions about our wedding because it wasn't our wedding. It was my wedding. And it's one of the things that some men know and a lot of men don't, that women's heads are filled with fantasies about their wedding day from the time that they're little girls. And I had reenacted mine with my Ken and Barbie dolls so many times in so many ways. And I was appalled that he actually had opinions, like that he objected to his pink cummerbund and bow tie. Why should he object? He's just a supporting actor in this movie. He barely a supporting actor. He's almost like an extra. He just needs to show up and say, I do, and look the way I want him to look. Now, I know that may sound really immature, but many of us do our own version of that. There are things that we think he shouldn't have a right to have an opinion about because it's my day. So that's before you even get any of the relatives involved, the mothers and mothers-in-laws and stuff. You can have conflicts just between what matters to each of you. Now, one of the things that made me really, really happy when someone important to me got married, because he worked with me, he knew women have wedding dreams. So he asked her what her dreams were about their wedding day. And she told him things she'd been dreaming of all her life. Now, I fell in love with his soon-to-be wife because she turned around and asked him. She asked him, was there anything that he had always wanted for his wedding? And he had always wanted to get married in a barn. And they did. She gave him that. It's a fantastic barn. And she gave him that. So see if you can just expand your idea of this and the usness of it. I recently offered to someone special to me that they could get married at my house. And I loved her response. I absolutely loved her response. She said, I'll talk to John about that. I thought she was going to say, I'll talk to my mom about that. Or I'll talk to my mom and my dad about that because she's young. No, she's going to talk to her fiance about that. I was like, oh my gosh, yes, it's already happening. They're in this together. Okay. As you know, there's a ton of things that can happen just around wedding planning. But just the right for him to have preferences, and that how he is about this event may be very different than you because of how he is. Whether he's engaged and delaying a wedding because he's not ready for marriage, or he's pretty sure this is not the right person. And if you're worried about that, go checking. If you don't feel accepted, if you feel criticized or picked on, then that right person thing isn't in place. And you want to investigate that, right? Or he may not care that much about the wedding because he's already married. And it's a celebration. It's a party. It'll be awesome. But he's not going to want to spend all that money on it because he's planning on what he's going to do with that money for the rest of your lives. Okay. Oh, good. Upgraded expectations. We talked about that. We talked about a women approach to a commitment and how to make it work for you. So how to make it work for you is notice each little thing. So often what happens is when a woman gets engaged, when a woman gets engaged, the day before she got engaged, there are things that her boyfriend did. The day after she gets engaged, there are things her boyfriend is going to do forever. So that sock that was on the floor the day before, today, that sock's going to be on the floor forever. That top's going to be up the toothpaste forever. That stupid joke, I'm going to have to hear that forever. Whatever it is, that's going to happen forever. It changes everything in our own minds. And that is a really good clue for what there is for you to pay attention to. So this thing forever, all right, can I sign up for forever? Am I willing to sign up for forever? I'll tell you a real example about this. About a month before our wedding, I noticed that my fiance, my husband of 24 years, had gained a lot of weight. Like I just suddenly noticed it. I saw him in a particular angle and went, wow, he's gained a lot of weight. And then I replayed all these things in my mind that I hadn't paid attention to at the time, comments that his family made and pictures that I saw. And I realized, oh, I didn't know this, but he struggled with his weight most of his life. I got him at a low point. And, oh, I knew what that was like. I had a stepdad like that. I'd struggled with my weight most of my life. I was about to marry someone who struggled with their weight. Okay. It was just like that. Okay. And I accepted it and I included it and I committed to myself that I wasn't going to forget who he was because of that. Okay, all right, well, that's going to be part of it. I'm still a yes. So you're looking, can you accept it? Can you pick it up? Can you put it in the package? You're working on the package that he is. Can you put it in there? Okay, that's part of the package. Or is it something that causes you dread? That causes you like this, oh, do you suddenly get really afraid? Like, no, I could do that maybe a year. I could do that maybe 2 years. I was engaged before Greg, in between my first husband and Greg. And we were going to get married in an Orthodox church. And the priest was explaining to me that in the Orthodox church, marriage is for eternity. And I had this realization. I thought I could put up with him for a lifetime, but never for eternity. It was a really good sign of how many things I was expecting to change, how many things I was just enduring that really weren't all right with me at all. And fortunately, I saw that and I ended that engagement. Yesterday was my 24th wedding anniversary. We were driving down the road and I just had this moment of paying attention to myself. And I paid attention to my thoughts and I paid attention to my feelings and I paid attention to my spirit and I paid attention to how my body felt. And all of a sudden I just turned to him and said, in this moment, I am in love with you with every fiber of my being. Oh my gosh, 24 years later. I couldn't have predicted that. Not at all, not from my first marriage. All from either accepting or we really need to talk about this because I need something to be different. And having those hard conversations and his willingness, his enormous willingness to keep giving me what I need, because to him, that's part of being married. He accepted the whole package, including his job is to provide what I need, including what I'm going to need in the future that he doesn't know about yet. So he is what we describe men as when they're not cajoled into something. Men are what we call yes. What? So men commit first and then get the details. And that's what you have as a possibility in a marriage if you're willing to have your eyes open and interact with your own process of commitment. It's valid. Your own process of commitment is valid. You don't need to be, okay, I just buy the whole package. You're not built that way. He's built that way. He did his due diligence for maybe a lot longer than you wished he had. But he did his due diligence, and he is buying this entire company called you. Now is your job. And I promise you that the more you pay attention to what there is to accept and what there is to come to a new agreement about, to make a deal about, the more you do that between now and your wedding day, the happier you're going to be on your wedding day. The more certain you're going to be on your wedding day, the more married you will be on your wedding day. That's the good news. Right out of the bad news. Bad news, good news, bad news, good news. Even the bad news has good news. Okay. All right. I did everything I promised to do to the degree that I could do it in this amount of time, even though I went over. And so I'm happy to have completed my promises. And I'm just going to give you a fact, a bit of information, and then we're going immediately to your questions that you can post on the chat feature. So should you decide to pursue your education with us, we call it the Queen's Code curriculum. So it's a code of honor, of honoring yourself and honoring who men are. And it's a secret code of understanding the way that men think, the way that men feel, the way that men speak, the way that they listen, what motivates them, what causes them to resist and dig in, all the way that they're put together. And it begins with a very big brushstroke of how men are. This is how a healthy man is. This is what you can expect from a healthy man. Most men, most of the time, will do this. And then from there, so that's the Queen's Code, understanding men. From there, it goes into specific areas. So the Queen's Code for sex, the Queen's Code for relationships, I already mentioned that. The Queen's Code for life, which is about how do you set up your entire life so you're honoring yourself. And the Queen's Code Challenge, understanding women. Because our biggest challenge in honoring ourselves is understanding our own instincts. And men's biggest challenge in being able to treat a woman as a queen and see her as a queen and honor her as a queen is understanding her instincts and triggering her instincts and getting a person that is like, uh-oh, how did this happen? So our entire curriculum is for you as a woman to honor yourself and to support the men in your life in honoring you while you're learning to honor who they are so that you can bring out the best in them and get the most of what you need and the most of what you want, whether it's admiration and respect or adoration and affection, whether it's getting the trash taken out or having an amazing for real partner and raising children, whatever it is that you're looking for more of, we give you the keys to that. Okay, so if you'd like to participate in our curriculum, you're in luck for two reasons. One is that we have been working very hard to bring the Queen's Code curriculum to the world on the internet. And just a few days from now, on February 24th, the Queen's Code Workshop will be available 24/7 in a format of 12 different sessions that you can watch as many times as you want for 90 days and replay and rewind and look at that again and think about that again inside of an e-learning center is what we call it, that has all these different prompts for you to look at the information in all these different ways to apply it to yourself and implement it in your particular situation. Now, I have a code for you. The code is pretty simple to remember. The code is engaged, okay? E-N-G-A-G-E-D. The code is engaged. And if you go to understandmen.com and you click on the Queen's Code Workshop and you select on demand, because that's the only way that we offer this course right now, then when you go to pay for it, whether it's with a payment plan or with by paying in full, when you put that code in, it will take $124 off. And in addition to that, you will get 3 live bonus teleclasses where we talk about some really important information to continue to get the best out of men. One of them is called How to Change a Man. Another one is called You Win When He Wins, okay? And the third one is literally, how do you bring out the best in a man? So you get that in addition. You'll also get 30 minutes of personal coaching by telephone with one of our workshop leaders who can help you apply the information to yourself. So all the questions that you have as you go through that course, that program, you can then turn around and ask those questions of someone who has led that program themselves. So all that is included when you go to understandmen.com and register for the Queen's Code Workshop on demand. And then this code engaged is good for a week. It's good till next Tuesday. And there's actually a time. Midnight. Midnight next Tuesday is when that code will expire. And but you can use it to get your $124 off and all those goodies. And then on Friday, this Friday, you'll get an email with access to the Queen's Code Workshop to do at your pace as many times as you want for 90 days. Sorry, I have been working so hard on having this be brilliant, to having it be the thing that makes the most extraordinary difference in your life. And having studied men since 1991 and been perfecting this workshop for the last 22 years, I am so proud of what we now can offer. I'm so proud. Can hardly stand it. Okay. Oh, so in case you're wondering, all those things that you get are a value of $1,123. And after the promo code ENGAGE, which you put in at the end when you're checking out, you'll be paying only $725 for the whole program, for the whole 90 days with all those goodies. Okay. If you're a reviewer, by the way, you've already done the Queen's Code Workshop or Celebrating Men, Satisfying Women. When you go to understandmen.com, look on the side and it says reviewers. And we have a special price for you to participate in the curriculum as a graduate of the workshop. The graduates of the workshop who have been participating in the development of this so far have been blown away, just so you know. Okay, questions. We're going to go to questions now. And sorry, I have something in my tooth that's bothering me. Adrian, I know I went over. I should have started questions 22 minutes ago. Can you and Jennifer let me know if you can stay on to do a half-hour question so that I can keep that promise as well, even though I will not have kept my time promise in terms of beginning, the ending and the beginning part. I will have kept my content promise. Sometimes I get all of them kept, but I always default to the saving you suffering part than saving myself time. Okay, so I'm going to start reading your questions and answering them. And, thank you. Okay, so my teammates are good to stay late. Thank you very much for that. Okay, here we go. So I am seeing, oh, I got to go down to the bottom. Okay, I'm starting at the bottom. Please don't repost your question. It actually just makes it harder for me to do this. Lori, I'm wondering if this is a second engagement, as in later in life engagement. Wondering what? You would have to say more about that. What are you wondering? Yes, it definitely changes things. I mean, I noticed when Greg and I got married, instead of a big church and a couple hundred people, we had, I think, 13 people. And my son was standing there holding my hand. He got married too. So, yes, it changes. And you want to notice how it changed you. So notice if you have, notice your shoulds. That's still the place to go. So engaged, I should, he should, we should, this is how it should be later in life. Notice all those shoulds because they can really trip you up, and start sorting them for what matters to you and what doesn't. All right, thank you. Amanda's fiance says, I'm a man, and this is all true. Holy shit. Thank you, Amanda's fiance. And I love that. We would call that instant panel of men. And it's a good thing we have a policy on swearing that we do, but only for accuracy. So thank you for that. Yeah, I've been listening since 1991. I've been listening to you guys and really just trying to make it possible for women to hear you and see you. You're magnificent. How you approach marriage is cool. It's cool. Okay. Fabian, well, thanks for the confirmation, Amanda's Francis. So iron heart opening. Jonathan, this is so true. Totally awesome stuff. I didn't know we had men. It's a good thing I didn't look at the chat feature when I was teaching. I would have just ended up a puddle. It would have totally stopped me. Okay. Why do guys string you along for years if they know they're not going to marry you? So mean, had this done to me. I'm sorry. And that isn't this topic. And something to know is we have seen a lot of evidence that men keep saying, I don't want to be married. But if he keeps saying, I don't want to be married and I'm never going to be married, but he doesn't break up with her, she thinks that when he loves her more, he's going to change his mind. He wonders why she's still with him, given that he knows she wants to be married. So I'm not going to spend more time on that, just given the context of this particular program is not that. How much does it matter if I chose the ring? If you chose the ring, it means that you're probably really happy with your ring, and it's a relief for him that you chose your ring. And I chose my ring. Greg took me shopping for my engagement ring, and I got to pick it out. And then he got down on his knee and asked me to marry him again and again and again and again. So it matters probably that you love your ring, which is great. That part of the movies, you know, where they have the ring, yeah, it's just a fantasy. Rings don't marry anybody. Okay, Stephanie, my fiance revealed to me that his mom pushed him to ask me to marry him. He said it only affected his decision and that he asked me a few weeks earlier than he would have if he hadn't told his mom he was proposing. I'm still worried about this. How do you think this affected him asking me? I love that he told you. I love that you know this. He already decided that he was proposing. His mom just pushed him to ask you earlier, probably because of some holiday or family function or something she thought was important, while he was devising his own plan. It has nothing to do with him being ready and you being the right person. In fact, he told his mother he was proposing to you. He didn't check with his mother to see if it was okay. He told her he was. He picked you. And when they pick you, what their mothers think of you is just part of how it goes. Their mother's approval is not required when they've decided you're the right one. So it's all good. No worries at all. It just means it happened sooner. So you were engaged a few weeks sooner than he was planning on you to being engaged. When he decided to propose to you was when he teed himself up to be your husband. And when you said yes, it still happened. Cool, huh? Okay. The sock is forever. That's funny and true. Yes. You're welcome, Lotus. Kernia, should you do your due diligence before saying yes? Okay. I love this question. Thank you. There's two different ways it can go. One is you can be straight. Like when you get the replay, you can show this to someone that you guys, you're considering marriage, and you can have him understand that women commit very differently. And it doesn't mean it's bad. We just do it differently. And we need to honor it. And it's that we don't honor it that causes the problems. So as long as that yes means that you're committed to committing, that for a woman, being engaged is a commitment to committing. And a broken engagement to a woman is she uncommits to committing. Because to her, she doesn't commit until the wedding. So it's best to do your due diligence before you commit, which is why I told Greg to not ask me to marry him until I told him it was okay to ask him to marry him, because I didn't want to say no. And he was talking about our grandchildren on our first date. So he had to wait like 11 months before I said it was okay to ask me to marry him, because I was doing my due diligence. I had been married. It's another funny part of the story. I said, I will marry you when the dirt in the street stands up and says I should. Someone asked him, what was his reaction to that? He said, I started working on the dirt. So now that you know about this commitment business, you could say, I really want to say yes, and I'm committed to saying yes when I have accepted or made a new deal with you about everything that I need to see myself being happily married to you. So I need some more time because there's some things to check out, and there's some things I have to check out of myself, and there's some things I need to talk to you about. So you can be straightforward about it. Awesome question. I love that question. Okay. Thank you, Sue. Janelle, my fiance has said I need to come at him differently. I read the Queen's Code, but I freeze up when I go to start talking to him about hurts. Yes, you need to come at him differently. It's great. It's great that he said that, Janelle. It's great that you could hear that. And the thing now to do is to be curious, because what most women will do is now try to figure out what the difference should be, and instead ask him, okay, I'm committed to coming at you differently. Script it for me. What should I say? When should I say it? How should I say it? How do I ask for what I need? Because what I need isn't going to change. How can I ask you for it in a way that you're empowered? So you're on the right track. Have him describe it to you. What does come at him differently, which is a classic man term, I love that, mean? What does that mean to him? Okay. Congrats, Alison, for getting the Queen's Code on demand. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Oh my gosh. Rosalie, how can I ensure my boyfriend? Ensure my boyfriend. How can you ensure my boyfriend that. It's an interesting word in that context. Okay, we'll go with that. How can I ensure my boyfriend that by moving with him for a job, it is not an ultimatum to get engaged? I'm just going to support him and enjoy a new experience. Great question. So when men aren't ready to get married, right, which getting engaged is getting married, it's not an interim step, then if they're not clear about their readiness for it, or all the pieces of the picture haven't come together in terms of the right person, and some of these pictures take time to come together. One of them being, for example, how do you respond when life is hard? How do you respond when there's big problems? Sometimes men have to wait for a big problem to happen to see what happens to the woman. How does she handle a big problem before they now have the confidence we can be married, because life has problems. And if we can handle all our problems the way we handled this, we'll be good to go. So we talk about this in the Queen's Code relationships. Women tend to hide problems because they think men marry women where there haven't been any problems. It's just been perfect. And men are often waiting for there to be a problem to know she's the one. So the way to make sure that he knows that you moving with him to a different place for his job is not about pressing him to commit to the rest of your lives together, is make sure that you're creating that new life for yourself. Make sure that, yeah, I want to be with you. I'm willing to risk this. I'm willing to uproot my life to a new place to give us the full opportunity to find out who we can be for each other. We don't know yet, so we need more time to find out. And what he needs to know is your happiness going to be his problem? Because you uprooted your life to go be with him, is it now his problem? And like, he's got to commit because you changed your life for him. You need to have actual things that the right word, Rosalie, is show. Show him. Show him you're excited to be there. Not just about being with him, about how you're creating your life in the new place. Show him the ways that you're not now having your life revolve around him. It's very important to men for women to have things that they're passionate about. The way they talk about it is that she has things that feed her, that she then can feed the relationship, rather than she's looking to the relationship to feed her because she's empty. That's terrifying for men. So keep putting in place things that have you love your life in this new place, and that you love being there, and you're thankful that he got you there, and that no, he doesn't owe you anything. You'll have to keep showing it. Okay. What are some key things we should look at when considering if a man is good marriage material? Marriage material. What a fascinating term, marriage material. Okay. So we've been talking about a man looking for the right person to marry. And you could say that the process of accepting or having a new conversation about something, or finding out that it's a deal breaker, which is possible, that's a woman figuring out, is he the right person for her? And in the Queen's Code for relationships, we go through a whole process for a woman to distinguish all the shoulds, all the fantasies, all the illusions, all the nonsense from what really makes a man the right person for her. So there's marriage material, like a marriage-oriented guy. Well, for sure, it's not a man who says, I'm not marriage material. You have to believe those men, which is one of the biggest mistakes that women make. They think, oh, but I'm going to be so wonderful and he's going to love me so much, he's going to change his mind. No, Him not being marriage material is something he knows about himself that existed before he ever met you and will exist long after he's known you. And he has no commitment to changing it, and you're not going to be able to change it. And even if he gets married, if he knows he's not marriage material, though, that does not make a good husband. Another way to think about it is when a man is merely willing to be a dad. I was listening to a man last night describe that the woman that he couldn't get out of his mind demanded to have a child. He broke up with her because he wasn't going to have any more children, but they kept getting back together. And finally, he agreed to have a child. And for the first 13 years of that child's life, that child was his wife's child. This is how he said it. She was her daughter for the first 13 years. And now 13 years into it, he's seeing that that girl needs him, and he's stepping into being there for her. At 13 years old, he's now taking a whole new role as a dad. The family's having to completely reorganize themselves. But he was telling her the whole truth the whole time. He merely got to barely willing to have a child, one. So children and marriage are a lot alike, not that you have to have one or the other. Marriage material is a man who's looking to get married, who wants to get married, who thinks it's a privilege to be married, who envies his married friends, their lives, and what being married provides for them. And that would be a good thing to be curious about, to ask the men in your life, what's great about being married? What's the advantage of being married? What do you love about being married? It's one of the most important questions that we ask in the Queen's Code for Relationships. And it's shocking because women don't know. Women don't know what is awesome about being married because we only just hear the complaints. The people who are happily married don't talk much about marriage. They're just happily married. They're just having their lives. There's not a lot of drama and discussion about it. So you actually have to go out of your way to find out what's great about being married. And men who think of themselves as marriage material, they're looking forward to being married. They want to be married. They consider it an advantage to be married, a plus, a privilege, worth it. And they're looking for the right person that it'll work with. So I would start with that. So that's in answer to your question, marriage material. That doesn't mean that someone's the right person for you. That's a whole other question. What makes someone the right person for you is not the same as what makes someone the right person for me. Okay. All right. Let's keep going. I've been dating a man for a year. How do I ask him where he's at this point? I'm assuming you mean where he's at this point about your relationship or about being married. You just ask him, where do you see this going? Or what do you think about us as lifelong partners? Or just don't ask him how he feels, because it'll be a hard question for him to answer, and the answer won't mean to him what it means to you. So one of the things to know, though, Brenna, and this is something that's changed a lot since I started studying men 26 years ago, is what do you mean by dating? Because one of the things that men distinguish for us is that there's a huge difference between dating someone and being involved with someone. And the difference is that word. Men are quite literal. So when they're involved in her life. They know what happened to her yesterday. They know she has a big meeting today. They know they've been at the hospital with her dad. That's someone who's they're involved. That's someone who's taking on more. Dating is isolated incidences of spending time together. and the accountability is much lower. And this is a huge word to pay attention to with men. And Adrian, if you would post the recording, we did an introduction, I think, like 9 months ago or something, about dating or something else, the difference between dating and a relationship for men, that could help what Bren is asking about and what I may be causing for other people to wonder about. There's all different kinds of signs, and they mean completely different things. Okay, I accidentally skipped Julie. So men know within the first 30 seconds if you're marriage material. Thinks yes on the first date, will he stop dating other women? If not, does that mean he feels any less for me? They wouldn't say marriage material. They would say, well, they might say that. Sometimes they say, like, this could be it. She could be the one. Something really special about her. Oh, oh boy. She's in a whole other category. And the way I like to think about it, and I describe it in this teleclass I was just asking Adrian to post, is that it's like the edge pieces of a puzzle. And that now declares the edge. This is someone that I could really care about. This is someone that I could spend my life with. They have that thought. What they say is within 30 seconds. 3 minutes is the longest I've ever heard someone say, and he actually took it back and said actually 30 seconds. So that thought is there. And now they go about seeing about the things that make someone the right person. And as they're looking for the evidence of that, what they'll say, if they don't find the evidence or they find the opposite, is they'll say it just didn't add up. So they'll have thought she could have been it, but it just doesn't add up. It just didn't add up. So the thing that's key to your question, let me see if I can get back down here. The thing that's key to your question here is, and that you have to watch out for, and this is for everybody. So if he thinks yes on the first date, will he stop dating other women? If not, does that mean he feels any less for me? So this is at the root of most of women's frustrations with men. And that is that we think that a man's actions are generated from how he feels about us. So we think if he feels the right way about me, then he will act the right way towards me. So we're always trying to change how men feel about us because we think that's the source of his behavior. And if our instant panel is here, it'd be lovely to hear from them. Jonathan and I think there was Stephen, and then there's Amanda's fiance. If they would validate this, this would help the women a lot. So for a man, part of being mature is that your actions are not determined by how you feel. They consider it to be not only mature, but honorable. An honorable man does the right thing no matter how he feels. Now, what he thinks is the right thing could be very different than what a woman thinks is the right thing. And we investigate that thoroughly in the workshop. But he's got to do the right thing, independent of how he feels. But women keep trying to affect how he feels, so he'll do the right thing. So our frustration as women, our inability to get what we need, our inability to affect men's behavior, comes from we're working on the wrong thing. We keep working on changing how they feel about us, but that's not the source of their behavior. And the Queen's Code workshop and the rest of the Queen's Code curriculum is about what is actually the source of their behavior. If the source of their behavior is not how much they love you or how little they love you, what is the source of their behavior? I hope you're getting curious. I've spent 26 years on this. And in the beginning, truthfully, I hated men. I thought they were shallow and questioned seriously if they had souls, and thought it would take 2 or 3 months to learn everything that was worth knowing about them, just to get them to act a little better. I had no idea that all these years later, I would be still just fascinated by them, amazed by them, moved by them. The source of their behavior is beautiful. They have good reasons. They also have instincts. They also have impulses. They also have things they desperately need that we largely ignore or make fun of. That is the source of their behavior. But when you understand the effect on them, then you find out it's actually a good reason. So him stopping dating other women goes back, Julie, to other things we talked about. So is he ready for marriage? So if he's ready for marriage and she's someone, oh, this is where I should put my energy, I should pursue this, I should see if this puzzle fills in, then there's a very good chance he would stop dating other women, not like as some kind of loyalty or exclusiveness, but just as he's focused on something else, and to him, seeing other women would be a waste of time and energy. Again, it's not going to have to do with how he feels. It's going to have to do with what is he focused on, what is he pursuing. It's so much more complicated than we think. If it was just what we thought, if I can make him love me more and then he's going to treat me just right, we would have worked this out a long time ago, but we're paying attention to the wrong things. Absolutely the wrong things. Okay. How do you get a man that is reluctant to open up and be conscious in relationship? So open to communicating about growth around communication and defensiveness and getting out of our defensive patterns and having open, non-defensive dialogue about that. Stephanie, it has to do with the previous question where her fiance was saying, I need you to come at me differently. One of the first things I'm going to tell you in the Queen's Code is if men seem defensive, they feel attacked. And that's what you have to go looking for. You have to go looking for, how am I attacking him? Now, a woman will go looking for, does she feel like she's attacking him? Does she have a feeling of attack in her body? No. She'll think, how can I be attacking him if I don't feel like I'm attacking him? Well, yes, men pay attention to feelings. Yes, they're super sensitive actually to sincerity, where words and feelings match. But women do things all the time that to a man is an attack. And we look at this in the first few hours of the workshop. How are you attacking him? So he's not going to open up to a conversation about being defensive while he's being attacked. When you stop attacking, they stop being defensive, and there's very little conversation to have. Because the thing you're trying to have a conversation to have isn't happening because it wasn't being provoked. So I'm sorry, this is not pretty. And if we were interacting like on the phone or in a workshop, I would say, do you want the real answer? Are you sure? You're not going to like it. We also talk about men's relationship to revealing in the Queen's Code workshop. And you won't like that either. But when you understand what causes a man to reveal, then you can create the conditions in which a man naturally reveals himself, which is why I know so much about men, because I've learned how to create the conditions in which men reveal themselves. And they reveal everything. Stunning what they reveal to me because of what I am generating that makes it okay for them to do that. The other thing is we have a program on our website called Journey to the Center of You. And Adrienne will probably post a link. And there are men who are what we would call knowers and growers, just as there are women. And they'll know to know and grow to grow. So there are men for whom growth is an end in itself. And they will engage in growth for growth's sake because it's their highest value or one of their highest values. There are other men for whom growth is fine. It has to have a point. It has to be relevant to their highest values. It has to be, they're willing, it survives the worth it calculation by what that growth contributes to what it is that is their highest values. So those of us engaged in growth and development can have a tendency to think that growth and development is an inherent good, and anybody who's not engaged in it, there's something wrong with them. It's just not true. But Journey to the Center of the You is about the 5 highest values that I've identified in humanity. We all have them, and we all have them in different orders. And how someone spends their time and their money and their energy will be according to the order of those values. And we often are attracted to, engaged to, married to someone who their 5 highest values, and therefore the source of their decisions and actions, directly conflict with our 5 highest values. And so it keeps seeming like they're not supporting us, they don't agree with us, they're not with us, there's something wrong with them. It even seems like there's something wrong with them, like they make stupid decisions because we don't understand why they're making a decision based on something else that it is on the low end for us. So I encourage all of you, especially so many of you, being engaged. Get it. It's a download. It's about 3 hours. It comes with a whole chart of predictable conflicts between what we call the 5 modes of living and loving. And it is one of the most important things that you can sort out about someone that you're marrying, because those things don't change. They might evolve, but they don't change. Those have been important to them their entire life. It defines them, and you as well. So that would be a really important thing to investigate. Okay, so my guy told me he's looking for rings. Long story short, I let him know my preferences and it not go over well. I was thinking I was being helpful, but I think he may have already had something picked up that was not what I suggested, and this made me feel awful. I was confused and he was hurt. My question is how to navigate that situation. Well, you could apologize for not realizing that he had a vision of what he wanted to give you, which many men do. Many men have what they want to put on her finger. It's not a brand, but it's the expression of their esteem, expression of their love, expression of their commitment. Actually, if you go along in our curriculum, you'll see one of our graduates sharing in, I think it's the Queen's Code for Life, about what it was like for her when her husband gave her engagement ring, and what she assumed was his motivation for giving her that ring that he picked out for her. And that actually, as a result of the workshop, she went and asked him why he picked that ring. And she couldn't have been more wrong as to why he wanted her to have that ring, which she didn't receive well because of what she made up about why he wanted it. So you could be curious, Justinia, and sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, but apologize for that you didn't know that he had something in mind. And that, you know, you're a girl and girls dream about their wedding and engagement rings their whole life. And that if there is something that he wants to give you as a gift, because it's how he sees you and it's what he would like you to wear for the rest of your life, that you would be happy to do that you would accept that. Sometimes there are things that are so much more important than preferences. It's the receiving of the gift. It's his expression. You're wearing a ring that looks like him, maybe, rather than looks like you. Or maybe he's picked out a ring that reminds him of you. That to him, that does represent the qualities he most loves in you. So he's giving you a representation of who you are for him. There's a lot that can go into this stuff. So you start by apologizing and you ask, him what it means to him. Would he be willing to share with you what your engagement ring means to him and what picking it out for you means to him? And then put the imaginary tuck tape over your mouth and listen and listen and listen and listen. There'll be more to say because I'm still going to tell you to honor yourself. If he gives you something that makes you cry at the idea of not happy, at the idea of having to wear that the rest of your life, then that's a different discussion and something we teach you to do in the Queen's Code for Life. How do you set boundaries in ways that takes care of other people? Oh my gosh, I'm way over. I'm supposed to stop at 7:37, so I am going to stop now. Let me see if I can pick anything off. I would ask him, so Lori, you don't have to be concerned. Just ask him, what does he want to have happen before a date is set? Is there anything in particular that he wants to have already had happened before you guys set a date? And then again, imaginary duct tape and just listen. You may find out about things that he wants to have in place, either to handle that expense or before that expense, or the vision he has of himself as a husband, things that should be handled. But curiosity, I'm going to tell you guys this 1,000 times probably. Be curious, be curious, be curious. We often aren't curious. We often decide why we would say that, and then we're afraid of it, and then we project it onto them, and then we have all kinds of reactions based on what we projected, instead of being, oh, okay, would you tell me why or what you're waiting for? And are we ready to pounce? Why not? That won't get an answer. Okay. Consuelo, that's amazing development of men material, so I'm not going to answer that now. Brenna, you should ask your boyfriend. Is anything has changed in his statement that he'll never get married again? Or is that still true? And if that's still true, how does he see what happens with you guys? Get married again. Divorce is horrible for men. It's horrible. And get married again never get married again doesn't mean never commit again. It often has a lot to do with the institution and how much men get the raw end of the deal. Yeah, Catherine, your question just is the same thing. To men who have been married and seen that it doesn't actually alter the way people interact with each other, they realize it's not about being married, it's about being committed. And commitment is something that you show every day. It isn't something that happens one day in a church with I do. So I wouldn't worry about that. Right on track. You're doing great. He's involved in your life and I in his. You're not just dating. Ah, awesome. Yay, Brenna. You're not dating. You're involved. Okay, you're welcome, Stacy. You're welcome, Peggy. You're welcome, Fabian. You're welcome, Barbara. You're welcome. You guys are the best. All right. Thank you for staying late. Thank you for letting me keep those promises, if none others. Thank Adrian and Jennifer for staying late. And Jennifer's engaged, and it was so much fun to be talking about this. Because I know her fiance, well, you know, the guy who's already her husband, and too much fun to watch you two do life together. Such a joy for me. So thank you, understandmen.com. Engaged is the promo code. Until next Tuesday night, and I hope I get to see you in our curriculum. Good night, everybody.